Okay, hello everyone. Dr. Khairul here. Today we are going to talk about Chief Knowledge Officer versus Chief Information Officer. Well, I talked about this last week already, briefly, on what is Chief Knowledge Officer or CKO and what is Chief Information Officer or CIO. I mean, you can always Google these two terms and most importantly, what I want you to know with regards to this particular subtopic is you have to know what is CKO, what does a CKO does, what is a CIO, and what does a CIO does. Yeah, what will be the job scope of a CIO? And this is one of the topic in the knowledge workers topic. This is from the PowerPoint slide of knowledge workers. So today I'm going to brief to you on the content of Chief Knowledge Officer and also Chief Information Officer. But the focus here is more on the Chief Knowledge Officer. Okay, so let's get to it. Right, the primary task of a first generation CKO is to come up with a knowledge management initiative or a knowledge management program. So the CKO needs to come up with strategies. Okay, the CKO needs to come up with programs, initiatives. But in order to do that, the CKO needs to have knowledge on, firstly, what is knowledge, the fundamentals of knowledge, and also why knowledge is important in an organization. What is KM? Why do organization needs KM? What will be the KM pillars? What will be the KM processes? Particularly the 4 ones that we covered in this class, which are discover, capture, share, and apply. The CKO needs to have good understanding on KM solutions, which is about supporting a KM process. It's about introducing KM system, which is basically mechanism with technology and being supported by culture, by people and all that. Okay, so based on the knowledge that the CKO has on this, which is basically the content of this class, then the CKO is able to come up with all these programs, initiatives on KM. Yeah. That's one thing. That's one aspect that is the primary task of a CKO. But on another task that is quite important as well for the CKO is to promote KM. Okay, to make people aware of knowledge management, to make people aware of the value of knowledge, why knowledge is important for an organization. That's number one, to make people, employees, aware of that, and also try to get buy-in from the management, from the people, from the employees in the organization on KM. Because I'm sure that employees in an organization does not know what KM is or does not fully understand KM is. Even for the senior, for the top management as well, they know that KM is important, but on how to do that, that's the question, right? So that's why they need someone to assume the position of a CKO to kind of like think what will be the initiative of KM, program KM that this person can come up with, and also at the same time try to make members of the organization or employees in the organization to fully understand the value of knowledge, the value of KM, why we need KM, and how to go about that, right? So the CKO would spend a lot of time meeting people in the organization, try to promote KM. But again, if it is a big organization, it's kind of like difficult for the CKO to preach about KM. So what the CKO can do is to have that focal person, yeah, or that knowledge champion. So the CKO needs to have knowledge partners. Yeah, it can be a representative for each of the department in the organization. The CKO must have some ideas and projects in mind on how to implement KM and what will be the strategy in executing that or in doing that. It's either try to promote KM first, try to make people aware of KM, or slowly building, introducing KM projects to a particular department or one or two departments for like a pilot project, and also um, must get people to commit, yeah, to the project, yeah. And when KM is being introduced, then some changes is inevitable, right? If you can remember, I say some people are quite distant from KM because it kind of like add more burden to the employees. So the CKO needs to think of a way on how to integrate KM as part of the business process in the organization. So the CKO will do a lot of selling to people on KM, preaching to people about KM. If you just Google Chief Knowledge Officer, you can get a definition, overview, and also the type of work that a CKO does. And also you can get people who are actually Chief Knowledge Officer. Some organizations, if they believe in KM, they would have a department on KM. Then they would have a Chief Knowledge Officer, right? So this chief, if an organization really believe in KM, so they would have a Chief Knowledge Officer that sits at the same level as Chief Information Officer. So if you look at this particular person, Craig Robbins from Colliers International, if you look at his position, he is the Chief Knowledge Officer and also President and Client Service. So this person is at the top level management, right? You can search for this person. If you find, it's good, but take a look at the job description if there's any. If there is no job description, then you have to go to LinkedIn, try to search for Chief Knowledge Officer. You can get maybe a few hits. Try to search Chief Knowledge Officer in Malaysia, for example, then you can get a few hits for Chief Knowledge Officer in Malaysia if there is any. If there is none, then you need to change the search keywords a little bit. Instead of putting Chief Knowledge Officer, then you might want to put, for example, like KM Manager or Knowledge Manager, those kind of position, because different organization would name this position differently. So this is different from like the IT. You have the IT manager or the CIO. That is pretty much standard, right? So there's not an issue with regards to CIO, because CIO is a person that assumes the position of a CIO is very much oriented towards business function. It's about making business function more efficient. It's about implementing IT on this business functions. So the responsibilities of a CIO includes anything with IT strategy, IT operations, and also managing the IT function. Yeah? So it's quite distinct and it's quite direct. And because of IT is part of the organization's backbone, right? So the CIO has a lot of work to do. So it's swamped with work. And the CIO will score high on technology, so a CIO will be very much well versed with technology and also consulting dimensions, but not so much on entrepreneur. That the selling skills is a bit low because there is no need to sell. Organizations really need IT or information, infrastructure or information system. Okay, so there's not so much on that. Just propose that a particular IT infra or IT systems will enable the organizations to perform better, to be more efficient. Then the top management will buy that straight away, right? So this is different from knowledge officer, because CKO, if the CKO is trying to promote KM initiative, then the top management will ask a lot of questions. For example, like the ROI, return on investment. So we are having this knowledge management system, or buying this knowledge management system. So what will it do for us? And it's quite a tough sell because it is not directly contributing to the performance, right? So it's very much I can say second level contribution, or the contribution is intangible as compared to tangible. Just take a look at the impact of KM, the topic before this, or two topics before this, right? When we talk about the impact of knowledge management, all those 4 dimensions. If you look at the dimensions, it's more like, try to improve customer service, try to make customer loyal, try to make employee happy, job satisfaction. So it's not really contributing directly to the dollar and cents um, of the organization. Okay, so the CKO needs to do a lot of selling, just like I said, and with that, the CKO needs to have a high score in terms of entrepreneurship and also consulting. Yeah, so he has to do a lot of selling, right? And the job description is ambiguous, because if you compare that with CIO, it's very direct, it's IT. But for CKO, it could be anything, right? It's about KM, but it could be anything that involves knowledge, right? So that's the job description. That makes the job description of a CKO is ambiguous, right? And the responsibility of a CKO as compared to CIO is more distinct. It's more about IT, but CKO is about anything about KM. So that's the thing. That makes it the job description is ambiguous. It's anything about KM. Okay, what do you do really, right, for a CKO? So anything KM goes, right? Mechanism, initiative, systems. So that's a difficult part. We want to implement a knowledge management system. Then there are so many things that comes into the picture about with the ROI and how's that different from the IT functions. Can we use that? Can we write on that? So there are many issues. Yeah? So the CKO needs to do a lot of presentation or presenting and also defending. Yeah, and knowledge management in an organization is about change. So the CKO will initiate and lead a team in transitions. Yeah, so because there are a lot of change going on in the organization if KM is going to be implemented. Yes, we are going to add, the CKO is going to add more things into the current workload. So that is why certain people will not be happy about that. But the CKO needs to think of how those KM initiative or KM tasks can be integrated seamlessly in the existing business processes in the organization. Okay, and yeah, that's about it with regards to CKO and also CIO. Before this, we talk about knowledge workers, knowledge work, and the types of we didn't cover the types of knowledge workers. I will cover that in another video, but for this particular video, I'm only talking about CKO and also CIO. Okay, so thank you very much.